The world is constantly changing. Today, more than ever, people and businesses are realizing the power that videos have. Learning to edit videos is becoming a valuable skill set. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use Premiere Pro for anybody who is just starting out. So let's jump in. So before we start, Adobe is currently having a 40% off sale. I have a link which you can click in the description for anyone who wants to get started. Now let's jump in. All right, so first thing you're going to do is we're going to open up Premiere Pro. This is the screen you'll get to when you open it up. You need to click on New Project over here. At the top left, we can give our project a name. Let's call it Premiere Tutorial. And you can select where you want the project to be saved. Over here, I'm going to choose location and save it there. And then click Create at the bottom right. All right, and you have your first project. Now what you need to do is you need to create a new sequence. Sequences are files that you create inside a project. How I like to do it is if I have a certain client, I'll create a new project for that client. And then any videos that I do for them, they're usually quick videos. I'll create new sequences for each video that I create for them. How we do that is we go to the top up here, File, New Sequence, and you can give it a name. Let's just call it the same thing. Premiere Tutorial. On the left over here, you have all the options for video type that you would like to create. I'm going to go with the standard, which is ARRI 24 or 23.976. Let's go with that one. I'm going to say okay. That is a pretty standard file type, so if you want to copy me and use that, you can go for it. Okay, and now on the bottom left here, we see we have our sequence. But our sequence is empty and it doesn't have anything inside of it. So what we need to do is we need to import some footage into our sequence. Premiere Pro makes this really easy. You can do this by dragging and dropping. I find that it's the easiest way to do it. You can also import from the top by clicking File and Import and selecting your files, but I find it way easier to just drag and drop. I have two clips that I'm going to use and I'll drag them straight in there. If you do know the frame rate that you're working with and your client has a certain frame rate that they want you to create the video in, and you want to make sure that all of your footage is in that frame rate, you can right click on a clip, go down to Modify and Interpret Footage. And over here, you click this button, Assume this frame rate, and you put in your frame rate over there. If you do that, you can slow your footage down or make it a bit choppy, depending on the project's frame rate. I think in this instance, you're probably starting out, you won't need to change the frame rate. But if you need to change it, that's how you do it. One thing that you want to start doing well from the beginning is organizing your footage. This is something I'm pretty bad at. You can sort all of these files into folders because you'll see later on things get really messy and it's going to be very hard to find files in different places with all these crazy names. So at any point you can right click on something and rename it over there. And if you click off of your footage, right click and say new bin, that's basically going to create a new folder. And we can call this footage. We can create another one for any audio that we might have. And now all you do is you select these and drag them into your folders. And this is just going to make your workflow a lot easier. All right, so we've imported our footage, but we can't see it just yet. So how you do that is you highlight your footage and you click and drag and bring it into this section. Once you release, it's going to ask you about the resolution of the footage. Basically, the first time you put a video into a sequence, the sequence is going to assume that video's resolution. I've already set up a sequence with a certain resolution, so this one obviously doesn't match. So when I put it across, Premiere Pro is saying this sequence doesn't match the video that you are putting in. Do you want to change it? So you can either change it, but I'm just going to keep the existing settings as is and change my videos later. All right, and there we go. Now we can see our footage. If we click this arrow up top and move it along, you can see the first clip and our second clip. All right, so before we get started with the editing, I quickly need to show you this dashboard and which sections do different things. So let's start at the bottom left, which is selected. This is called your project window. This is where, as you've seen, you can put in your videos, change your resolution and your frame rate. You can organize your files in this area. What I would do to start off with inside of this project window is I would close some of these tabs. You don't need some of these. How you close it is you right click on the little hamburger icon, close panel. You can close libraries, you can close info, definitely keep effects open, close markers, and close history. So have your bins, your files, and the effects tab open because these are the ones that you're going to need. Everything else you can close. All right, just above that, this window is called the source window. This window allows you to change a lot of the effects on a video. It gives you options to scale in, to position, to do rotation, and all that kind of stuff, which I'm going to show you a bit later. On the bottom right here, we have your timeline. Timeline, as you can see, is split into two parts. The top part is your video layers, and below that, below this line, are your audio layers. By default, you start out with 3 video layers and 4 audio layers. So this timeline works in a linear fashion. So your video starts on the left, and as it plays through, it would finish on the right. So it plays from left to right. Right, on the left-hand side of your timeline, you have some tools. These are the most common tools that you'll use in Premiere Pro. The first one is the selection tool. You have the track select forward, the ripple edit, the razor tool, slip tool, pen tool, rectangle, hand tool, and type tool. The ones that you'll use the most out of all of these will be the selection tool, the razor tool, your pen tool, maybe the rectangle tool, and your type tool. And each one of these has a corresponding shortcut, which I highly recommend that you learn early on. It's going to save you a lot of time. The selection tool's shortcut is V on the keyboard. The razor tool shortcut is C on the keyboard. Pen tool shortcut is P on the keyboard. And the type tool shortcut is T on the keyboard. And then the window just above that is called your program window. This is the video as you will see it in the end. So any changes that you make, you'll get to see what happens to your video when you make this changes in this window. So I'm going to take these videos away and I'm going to show you how I would take a video and edit it. So instead of dragging this straight into the timeline, what I'll usually do is double click on the footage, and this will make it pop up in your source window. Now what you can do is you can hit this play button here or the space bar in order to play and stop, and you can play through your clip, because I don't want the whole video. Basically, I just want a part of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the part that I want, select that part, and then pull that part into my timeline. I've double clicked on it, I play through it, and let's say I want to start it from that moment when she touches the ground. So I hit my space bar to pause, I hit I on the keyboard, or you can click this button here, mark in, and then I hit space bar to play again. And I'm going to stop when her foot hits the second time. And you can either click this button, mark out, or O on the keyboard. And now you can see that an area has been selected. That is the area that I want to use. I don't want to use any other part of this video. I only want to use that part of the video. With that area selected, I can click on this video and drag it down into the timeline and let go. I'm going to keep existing settings. If you click plus on your keyboard or minus on your keyboard, that zooms in and out. So I'm zooming in just to get a little bit closer because it was quite far out. And as you can see there, just that area that I've selected has now been moved to my timeline. And I'll do the same thing. If I have lots of footage, I'll go through them one by one. So I'll go over here to the left, double click on the next piece of footage. I can scrub through with my mouse, and let's say I want to start it there. I'll hit I on the keyboard, go to about this point over there, hit O on the keyboard, and only select that part of the video, click on it and drag it in, and there we go. And in this way, I don't have to cut anything later. I can do it all up front, and I've basically cut down my large chunks of video into smaller parts and then pull them into my timeline to make it easier to work with. So when it comes to the timeline, this blue line is called your playhead. If I hit play, that thing's going to move through the clips. Currently, it's playing this video, which is highlighted on the left. But as soon as the playhead moves across and finishes onto the next clip, that clip is going to be shown up on the screen. So I hit play, and my next video is displayed. Now, because there's only one video layer, Premiere is only showing me the video that is there. But how these layers work is that the playhead will only play the layer that's on top. Any video layer that is underneath another one will not be shown, always the one on top. So if I play this clip, you can see it because it's the only clip. But if I click and hold this layer, pick it up to layer 2 and drag it across, now that video is being displayed and the bottom one has disappeared. So if I move it away, you can see what's happening. So the timeline will always play or display or show the layer that is on top. And if we select this top video and click on this arrow, go to our effect controls, this is going to allow us to change some of the video parameters. So if we click on it and go over here to opacity, and currently it's at 100%. If we click on 100 and change it to 50 and hit enter, basically what it's done is taken the top layer and dropped the opacity by 50%, so it's become see-through. Now, when the playhead goes over this clip, it's outputting this bottom layer, but as soon as it gets to the next one, it's playing the top clip at 50%, but the bottom clip is going to come through because of your opacity. And with these effects controls, you can change so many things. I'm going to put that back to 100% and push it down again so they're on the same layer. And I'm going to select this second clip, and I feel like the scale is too big. You can either change the scale by clicking on it and putting in your own number by 70%, or I can go back. I can click and hold on it and drag left and right. To the right is always going to increase the number, to the left is always going to decrease the number. So I can pull this down to the left and my scale drops. Pulled it all the way down to 50% and now it fits perfectly with my frame. I'm happy with that. This section also allows you to change the position. So over here you have your x-axis and over here you have your y-axis. So if I click on this 960, click, hold, and move left and right. I'm moving my video on the x-axis. So smaller number moves it to the left, higher number moves it to the right. And it's the same with this number. If I click on the 540, click, hold, move to the left, and I move to the right, I'm changing it on the y-axis up and down. This is how you can change the position of your images. At any point, if you want to undo anything, you hit Command or Control Z, and that'll put everything back in its place and move backwards. You can also change the rotation here. So if we go down to rotation, see it's on 0, I'm going to click, hold, and turn. This allows you to change the rotation of your video. I'm going to go Command Z. These are the 4 main things that you'd use usually in video editing: is your position, your scale, your rotation, and your opacity. So this affects window, and these 4 parameters are quite important to know. All right, so now you know how to change the position, the scale, the rotation, and the opacity of your footage. We need to learn to cut. So I'm looking at this video and this clip is just way too long. I need to cut it at this point. How we do that is we can go to our razor tool by going over to the left here and selecting the razor tool, or we can hit C on the keyboard. That's the shortcut that brings up our razor tool. Now if we go across to our playhead and we zoom in by clicking plus on the keyboard, we have a little razor that comes up, and as you hover over your video you will see a line. This is basically showing you where the video is going to cut. So I'm going to just click at this point, and basically I've split my video into 2. Now I'm going to press minus on the keyboard to zoom out, and I've split my clip into 2 parts. And now if we want to get rid of this end part, we select it, click on it, and hit delete, and it's gone. I'm just going to go backwards and show you something else. Maybe we want to delete the first part. So I select the first part, delete, and now we have a big gap in the middle. That's pretty easy to fix. You basically click on this layer and drag it all the way across until it snaps and touches the other clip. If that doesn't happen on your footage, if you click and drag and it doesn't actually snap into place, make sure that you have this button selected, or hit S on your keyboard in order to snap in your timeline. Or another easy way is you select the area in the middle that you don't want, you hit delete, backspace, and it'll basically just delete that space and push the videos directly next to one another. All right, so I'm going to push this clip all the way to the right. I want this clip to be first, so I push it all the way to the left and then click this area, delete, in order to delete that space. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a title to this footage. So how you do that is you click the T type tool over here, or you can hit T on your keyboard and that will change to the type tool. Now if I hover over my video, I can see this little icon which allows me to create a font. If I click anywhere on my video, it's basically going to bring up a box in order for me to create some font. Let's just put some text in there. Once you've put in your text, if you come down to your timeline here, you'll see that it's created a layer for your text. This layer is movable. We can move this text to the left, to the right. We can shorten it by going to the sides here, where you see that little red arrow. We can pull on it from that side or pull on it from the left in order to shorten there. Now if we select our layer, come up to the top here where it says workspaces, click on that and go down to captions and graphics. An essential graphics panel pops up on the right. This is going to allow you to change some of your fonts. Make sure that browse isn't selected. Make sure that you click edit, the edit tab. Make sure that you select this layer over here, and we have all of this information that we can use now. So I'm going to double click on my text in order to highlight it all so that I can change it. And if I come down to here, I can change my text. I'm going to do CMG Sans, extra bold wide. We can click this font size, click, hold, and drag to the left, to the right in order to make it bigger, or you can select it and put your own amount in there. We can center, right align, left align. You can change the tracking in between the letters if you pull these apart. Pull letters or make them closer to one another. If you have multiple lines, you can increase the line space in between. You have options here for bold, italic, all caps. At the bottom here, you can add a stroke around your text. By default, only the fill is selected and you don't have a stroke. So if I want to do that, I select stroke, I click on this white box in order to change the color. I'm going to pull it up to the top and make it black. And on the right here, this is your stroke width. It's currently at 1 pixel, so you won't really see it. But if I click on that, hold it and drag it, you can see it makes a thicker stroke. So I'm just going to backspace all of that. You can add a background box. You can add some shadows over there too. And if we go further up, this is something that I use quite a bit, is we have an alignment tool. These two in particular are quite useful. If you click on this one, it'll align vertically. So it'll put it in the vertical center, and if you click on this one, it will put your text in your horizontal center. So now we know if it's vertically centered and horizontally centered, it is perfectly in the middle of my clip, which is great and what I want. You can also, if you click on your text layer and go to the left here, there is an option over here. Here's our text. We can click this arrow to drop down, and you basically have the same settings on the left in the effects panel. So what I want to do is I'm going to put this title, I'm going to make it the length of my clip at the bottom by dragging the sides in order to match. And what I'm going to do is I want this title to fade in. So there are a few ways that you can do that. You can go down to the effects tab on the left here and look for some video transitions. If you click on video transitions and drop down, there are quite a few. We can select a cross dissolve. I want to put the cross dissolve onto the text. So I click on my cross dissolve effect and I drag it all the way to my text. And as I hover over, a little green box appears. This will allow me now to drop the effect in. If I let go, a cross dissolve has been created. Now if I play through, it fades in. I can zoom in with a plus, and if I click on my cross dissolve and hover to the end of it, there's a little icon that appears with a red line. If I click now and pull this thing across, it's going to increase the length of my cross dissolve, so it's going to take a long time to fade in. So if I play now, just gives it a nice fade. Another easy way to do this, if you see this red arrow appear, you click in order to select the end of a clip, and then right click on it and say apply default transition. That's an easy way to add a cross dissolve onto any part of your footage. So you can do the same here. I'll right click, and that's going to cross dissolve my two pieces of footage into one another. All right, so I'm happy with this, but I think that this lady is walking a little bit too slowly, so I want to change the speed. How you change the speed is you select your clip, right click, come down to speed and duration. A little window is going to pop up that allows you to change your speed. It also allows you to reverse speed, so you can make the video move in reverse, backwards, and it has a percentage. So if I increase it to 200%, that's going to speed it up double the speed. If I hit OK, my clip is going to shorten because it's much quicker in length. Now if I play through, that video moves much faster. So that is how you can change speed. You can increase the speed, decrease the speed, and you can reverse. All right, so the next thing I want to show you is how to add music. So the easiest way to do this again is to drag and drop. So I go to my Finder, take this audio, and I'm going to drag it into my audio bin, which I've created. Now if I open my audio bin, I have my audio here. Same thing, you drag it onto your timeline, but with audio, you drag it into the bottom section. I'm going to drag it underneath my videos. And as you can see, we can now see our audio. We can see the audio waves, which means that audio has now been added to your video. In order to change the volume of your audio, select it. You can go up to the top left window here. On this drop down, you drop down the volume. So you can change your dB over here. Let's add 30. And that'll make it way louder. If we drop it down to -30 and play through, much softer. Again, if you want to have a fade in with your audio, you can go to your effects panel. There are some audio transitions. You can just drag these on. Constant power will basically add a fade. Or as I've mentioned, if you click on the left here when the red arrow appears, right click and say apply default transition, that's also going to add a fade onto your music. You can use these same techniques with sound effects. Sound effects will work exactly the same way. What I like to do is keep my audio right up top, and then I put my sound effects underneath that and I layer them separately. All right, so the next two things I want to show you is effects and transitions. So Premiere Pro has a bunch of effects. If you click on the effects tab at the bottom left here, if you click in video effects, they have a whole bunch. I'm just going to find a random one. Let's use the wave warp. And make sure that you put it onto the video that you want the effects to work on. So I'm going to let go there. Oh. And as you can see, as I let it go, the effect starts to do its thing. This one is a wave warp, which is a pretty interesting effect. But if you go to your top left panel, this is where you can change all of your effects and the parameters. Here is my wave warp effect. If I play with some of these settings, as you can see, it changes the width of my wave, the height of my wave, the direction of my wave, and you can get some really cool effects. But all of this to say, this is where you change the parameters on the effect in this top left-hand window. So anytime you dropped an effect on, you would select your video, go to the top left, and all of your parameters will be available to change right here. So that is how to add effects. And I would take some time to look through some of the effects. You can get some really, really cool effects. I got some cool tutorials on effects on my channel, which you could also check out. But I want to show you some transitions. So transitions would be different to effects, where effects go on top of a a video. The transition would be at the end of a video, moving it to the next clip. Merges the two clips together in a really cool way. So Premiere Pro does have some very basic ones. If we click down on these video transitions, you can do cross dissolves, we can do some slides. So let's do a split, and I'll pull that in between my two clips and let go. That is where the split is going to occur. And if I hit play, now we see it splits the two clips. If I select the split effect right in the middle, I can now pull this thing further apart, make it longer or shorter. If I pull in, I'm going to make it quite long, and that's going to extend the transition out and just make it a lot slower in that way. Premiere Pro does have some pretty basic transitions. I personally use something called Envato Elements, which gives you an access to some really cool high-level cinematic transitions and titles and a whole bunch of resources that you can use. I use it all the time in my videos and for all of my clients. Absolutely changed the video game for me. Really easy. A lot of them are drag and drop. I do have a video if you're interested in how Envato Elements works. You can check it out there, or you can get started by clicking the link in the description and jumping straight in. Guys, I would highly recommend that you get started with Envato. It'll change your life as a video editor. And then lastly, all we need to do is export our video. So how we do that is we can go up to File, down to Export, and Export Media. Or you can click on the bottom section, make sure that your timeline is selected, and hold Command M or Control M, and that'll bring up the export window. Or Premiere Pro does have an export tab that they've created in their latest update, so we can click on that. This is going to give you all of your export settings. At the bottom of your video clip here, it tells you all of your current settings. So our video is currently 1920 by 1080. If you're ever confused about the settings that you need to export in and you're making a video for the client, ask them ahead of time, hey, how do you need this video exported? Do you need it in 4K? Is Full HD okay? What is the frame rate that you need it in? Because you need all that information when you export. So we can give our file a name. We can call it whatever we want. So let's call it whatever we want. And this is the location. If we click on it, I can select where I want it to save to. I'm going to say desktop, save it to my desktop. Here we have some presets, which Premiere Pro will automatically put in for you. If you go down to the bottom here, you can click on more presets. This brings up a whole bunch. Probably the safest one that I would go for if you're starting out is some of these YouTube ones, and you can star them and you can favorite them. So go all the way down to the bottom, and probably the easiest one to start off with if you're making videos for internet is YouTube 1080 Full HD. Unless someone's asking you to make 4K videos, then select the YouTube 2160p 4K. But between these two, those would be good ones to go for because of the H.264 codec, which is probably the most common, the best codec that you could use starting out. So make sure that H.264 is selected. Let's go to, let me choose the YouTube one. So I'm going to scroll down, YouTube 1080p Full HD, and I say okay. So now we have our file where we want to save it, the preset 1080p Full HD, and our format. You can also select this video tab, come down and click the more button and select this little box, render at a maximum depth and use maximum render quality. I found that this just, I don't know if it does anything, but I just like to render in maximum quality, just knowing that Premiere Pro is going to give me the best. And that is it. After that, you click export, and Premiere Pro is going to export your footage. Once that it gets to 100%, it is done and you can watch your video. And guys, that is it. It is hopefully that simple. I hope that you feel a bit more confident in using Premiere Pro and how easy it is, and that you can start making videos and that you can start earning money off being a video editor. So if this was helpful, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, check out some of my other videos on my channel. See you guys around. Cheers.